Hello everyone, I'm Gardenia, and this is Tulpa Talk. Apologies for the late upload, the body's been sick and I haven't really been able to use my voice. Also, the laptop's been kinda screwy with the audio. But anyway, I'm here, I'm back, and got another video for you. This week's video will be on Tulpa terminology. Essentially, I'll be listing and defining a number of terms used within the Tulpamancy community. The listed definitions are informed and inspired by various sources that will be listed in the description, but they were written by another member of my system in their own words. The order of terms is determined by relevancy and categorized into different kinds of terminology: basic, developmental, communicative, interactive, descriptive, and status. For ease of navigation, especially if you're trying to figure out what a certain term is, on the next slide I'll list when in the video each category starts, as well as the terminology listed under each category. So with that settled, let's get started. So first of all, we have basic terminology. A tulpa, as I'm sure, or at least I hope you already know, is a sentient thought form which has a complete and complex personality and is able to control its own thoughts and actions. An intentional tulpa is one that is intentionally created and developed through forcing techniques. I will explain, of course, later in the video, what forcing is. An accidental tulpa is a tulpa that forms unintentionally, typically from an imaginary friend or a fictional or roleplay character that the host has become attached to or has otherwise created themselves. Note that not all such thought forms end up becoming tulpas. The host, which is also known as a tulpamancer or the creator, is an individual who creates a tulpa and usually owns and identifies with the body that the tulpas are housed in. In other plurality contexts, such as Tulpamagenic ones, the host is simply the one that is in charge of daily life and or fronts the most. A system, also known as a collective and other similar terms, is a term to describe a group of individuals who share a body. However, many traumagenic systems frown upon endogenic systems, calling themselves systems, because they believe that the term is a purely medical one that should only be used by traumagenic systems. This is a topic that is very hotly debated in the plural community in general. But as such, alternatives such as collective are suggested as replacements. A headmate is simply a member of a system or a collective. Developmental terminology. This category has quite a lot of terms, so please bear with me on this. First of all, forcing. Forcing is the umbrella term for various techniques that are used to develop one's tulpa. Active forcing involves setting aside time specifically for working on the tulpas of development while avoiding other distractions. Passive forcing involves engaging in other tasks while dedicating a minimal amount of focus to the tulpa. Narration is a passive forcing technique, which involves describing what one is doing in daily life to their developing tulpa in order to acknowledge and thus solidify the tulpa's presence in the mind. This can also involve the host simply thinking of and speaking to their tulpa. Puppeting, parroting is an active forcing technique. It involves actively controlling what a developing tulpa says or does in order to help the tulpa become accustomed to speaking or acting in these ways, which helps the tulpa develop their personality. Shard feeding is the act of splitting off shards from one headmate and putting them into another headmate in order to help them grow and develop with the traits of the shard. Shard seeding is the act of splitting off shards from one headmate and using those shards as the seed for another headmate to form. Deviation is the natural divergence of a tulpa from its original intended personality or form. This divergence could be major or minor, depending on the tulpa themselves. Head pressures are a somewhat common occurrence in tulpamancy, in which the host will experience a slight sensation similar to a mild and typically non-painful headache, in conjunction with young tulpas in early development stages responding to questions or attention. Communicative terminology. Tulpish is a form of communication amongst headmates involving the immediate transmitting of emotions, images, and ideas as opposed to words. Developing tulpas will likely communicate with this method before they gain the ability to be vocal. They may continue to do so even after reaching vocality, as a matter of convenience and or personal preference. Vocal. This is a stage of a tulpa's development in which they are able to verbalize their thoughts in complete and coherent sentences, in contrast with tulpish. The mind voice is a voice that a tulpa, or the host, has in the body's mind. This voice will likely not match the voice that this individual speaks with when fronting, especially if the individual's gender does not match that of the body's. Proxying is when the host externally communicates on behalf of their tulpa, most commonly through texting. Interactive terminology. This is also a section that has quite a bit of terminology with it. The Wonderland, also known as the headspace, the mindscape, or inner world, is a fictitious realm within the mind of the host where tulpas live and reside. Hosts and tulpas can interact with each other within this realm. Tulpas tend to have an easier time existing within this realm, while hosts may find it more difficult and require practice and/or meditation to be able to easily interact with the Wonderland. Wonderlands can be as simple as just a room, or can be as complex as an entire forest or a whole continent. Fronting is the act of directly controlling the body. Co-fronting is when two headmates share simultaneous control of the body. Eclipsing is when one headmate is controlling the body, but another headmate is close to the front and indirectly affects the current fronter's actions and reactions. Switching is when a headmate in control of the body and a headmate not in control of the body trade places. Possession is when a headmate, typically the tulpa, takes control of part of the body without actively fronting. Imposition is visual, audio, or tactile hallucinatory perception of a tulpa. This often requires extensive practice in order to successfully achieve. Merging is the act of two or more headmates combining into a singular individual. The merged individual usually retains the original headmate's personality traits and a blend or compromise of physical traits, but can also have unique personality and physical traits. This is a much debated and controversial subject within the Tulpamancy community, due to some perceiving it as a loss of individuality or even death. Visualization is using the mind's eye to see things within the mind, such as one's tulpa and the Wonderland/headspace. Descriptive terminology. Psychological. This is the school of thought that believes that tulpas are scientific phenomenon. Metaphysical. This is the school of thought that believes that tulpas are spiritual phenomenon. Form is the appearance that a headmate identifies with and will look like in the headspace. Forms can be diverse in size, shape, composition, and coloring, so a tulpa can be any race, species, height, etc. that they wish to be. These forms can be changed whenever the individual desires such a change. The soul bond, aka fictive, though this term is primarily used within traumatic communities. This is a headmate that is created based off of a fictional character. A servitor is a non-sentient headmate that generally has no willpower, that may seem to act independently, but in actuality only serves its creator. A walk-in is a headmate that joins the system fully formed, and often without warning. And last but not least, status terminology. Dissipation is the process of a tulpa, usually underdeveloped, being deprived of attention and interaction and fading into the recesses of the host's mind. This is a touchy matter within the Tulpamancy community, and is often seen as akin to death for the tulpa, or murder if done intentionally. Stasis, also known as dormancy, is a state of long-term inactivity that a headmate can enter. This is another touchy subject for the Tulpamancy community. Such a thing is advised against unless absolutely necessary, especially if you're the host. Though in some cases this can occur without any prior warning or apparent reasoning. As I stated earlier, you can find links to the terminology list that these definitions were paraphrased from in the video description. Some of those lists will be a lot more descriptive than the definitions I've given in this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, corrections, or contradictions regarding the terminology in this video, feel free to leave a comment about it. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it or found it useful, and subscribe if you want to see more content related to tulpas. I upload videos more or less on a weekly basis. The previous 2 weeks were an odd case because I was sick, and we went on a trip, and blah blah blah, but after this point I will start uploading more videos regularly. See ya!